Welcome and good evening to everyone joining us to this edition of EdTech Society's Masterclass. For people who are joining us for the first time, EdTech Society is a professional not for profit association started in India by individuals who are committed to improving instruction and learning through the use of education technologies. EdTech Society members are researchers, developers, practitioners, teachers in the field of education technology. So we have in this society, we have like graduate students, instructional designers, tools developers, school teachers from the government, corporate, higher education faculty, and even military trainers. Today's masterclass on bringing AI and humanities together by Mr. Mandar Kulkarni, co-founder and CEO of the Labs. Hi, Mandar. Mandar is an AI ethicist and educator. He is the co founder and CEO of The Labs. The is expanded as Technology, Humanities, Entrepreneurship Labs. This runs as an after school program at the intersection of AI and humanities for underserved children. He has more than 14 years of experience in tech, education, and films. Prior to The Labs, he was running a rural edtech startup, Gatuvit, for more than a decade. He has worked with 20,000 teachers and 2 lakh children during this period. He's also co-written and co-produced short films and documentaries through his venture Driya Creatives. Apart from these roles, he is also a partner at the Circle India and COO at Education for Equality Foundation. Today's talk by Mandar is a very pertinent question around us. What determines whether a technology uplifts or disrupts? This question has never been more urgent, and as AI evolves at an unprecedented pace, the choices we make as educators, creators, and even users carry great weight than ever before. The future of AI isn't just about what it can do, but what we choose to do with us. In this talk, we will take a step back and look at how technologies of the past have shaped society, sometimes for the better, sometimes for worse. We will also explore how we can learn from those examples and steer AI towards the collective good of humanity. Thank you, Mandar, for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you for inviting and for that introduction. I'll just share my screen. Yeah. Okay. So we'll dive right in. Uh, yeah. So I'll have 3 parts of this masterclass. Uh, and through these 3 parts, we will be discussing about bringing AI and humanities together and actually the need to do that and etc. etc. So first part, as you can see on the screen, is about transcending boundaries, and let's see what I mean by that. This is actually a question for audience to ponder. What is your favorite invention? So we are talking about technology, we are talking about AI, but if we have to just talk about or think about what is one invention that you as a person like the most for whatever reasons, just give yourself a second to think about that. And I'll share my favorite invention with you all. Is the wheel. And there is reason, and there has, of course, many of you would have thought of this invention as well. And we talk about the wheel, and wheel is now synonymous to progress. But why and how this invention has shaped society? Let's have a look at that. We see wheels everywhere, and these are some of the ways we see wheels in transportation to travel. It helps us to go from one place to another, and there are like some direct applications, as you see, like the wheels of any kind of vehicle, to also its presence in the gearbox, its presence as the steering wheel, etc., which is how wheel is kind of in the, moving us from centuries to now, from place to place. But the wheel has also been used in creativity and creating things, like these examples here. It has also been used in things that we play with or in various kinds of games and sports. It has also been used in cooking food or fetching water, and like all the things related to survival and the meals that we have. The wheels also help us to convert energy from one form to another. The wheels also help us to take care of one another. So, if we have to talk about this one invention, wheel, which has so many applications for many centuries, why this invention is so special and why it actually had so much of impact on humanities? Why actually was the invention of wheel so revolutionary? And I'll share what I think about. It's actually this: the wheel actually is not a part of nature. You don't see any animals like this artificial photo of a tortoise. You don't see wheels anywhere in the nature. Humans don't have wheels. No animals, no birds, nobody has wheels. They have different ways, different mechanisms to move from one place to another, but wheels are not found in nature. But wheel was an invention of humans, which actually was not something there in the nature, but was completely imagined and created by humans. So actually what we would call wheels is actually a quintessential example of augmentation. And when we talk about augmentation, a lot of times it is about how technology, any kind of tool technology, can support humans in to basically do things better. But why I think wheel is a quintessential example of augmentation is because it can do something that no human can do, no animal can do. And that's why it has been so successful. It has been so much helpful for our society for many centuries. And because it's true augmentation, it helps us transcend boundaries, and it has helped humanity so much because it's true augmentation. It's not something that is just supporting in whatever job that we are doing, but it is actually doing something that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. This is one more example of such augmentation. We humans can't see x-rays through our eyes, but x-ray machines can see our bones, and because of this particular capability we humans are able to do something which we were not able to do earlier after we invented x-ray machines. So x-ray machines is one more example of such augmentation. The famous image from James Webb telescopes are the ones which help us do what we can't do otherwise. The microscopes, they help us to see the smallest part of our body which we can't see otherwise through our own eyes. So we talked about augmentation, but let's talk a little bit about automation now. So there has always been few technologies which have been augmenting us, augmenting our capabilities, and there have been technologies which have automated stuff. And when we talk about automation, if you actually think about it, automation is very difficult for machines to achieve, and it's also less ambitious, I think. And I'll share why I think that it is less ambitious. So when we talk about automation, if you consider the earlier examples, for example x-ray, something that humans can't do, machine can do very easily. So it was not very difficult for us to build such kind of capabilities in machines which we humans do not possess. But in fact, if we think about the capabilities that we already possess and the machine has to automate it, then probably it's going to be very difficult for any kind of machine. So just imagine, instead of creating a wheel, we would have created mechanical legs. And this would have been an example of automation. So something that we are able to do, we are again making machines which do the same kind of thing again. And you can see how complex it would be to create such a kind of thing, and also whether it would have been as successful as wheels are. And that's the core difference between augmentation and automation. When we try to do something which is something that is not there in nature, it's not human capability, we create a machine for that, and it can help us transcend boundaries. On the other hand, the automation is a very difficult thing to do for machines, and we make them do that, but it's also less ambitious because, as you can see, wheel was a more ambitious thing to build because it eventually helped so many we helped us with so many things, while any kind of automation like this that you're seeing on the screen would not be so ambitious because it is not going to anyway go beyond a particular scope. So actually, augmentation can help us transcend boundaries, which automation might not. Automation also usually has impact on jobs because we are automating the stuff that we already do. It has impact on jobs. It can replace many jobs, and it has been happening throughout the history as well. But actually, it's not always bad to lose jobs. And though automation can replace jobs, there are a few jobs that, if replaced by automation, it's actually a good thing. For example, this one. So if you think about this job, you would want to automate it because you, even if a person is doing it, you don't want them to continue doing it. And that's where you can build a technology or think of a technology which can automate these kind of tasks. So this is just one example of a task, but there are multiple such examples which broadly fall into these categories. They are either dull, they are dirty, or they are dangerous. So you saw one example of dangerous, which is actually a life threatening kind of a job. But there are many other jobs which are purely dull in nature. And probably it's better that the machine does it rather than a human. So if any kind of jobs fall into these categories, the automation of those jobs can still be justified. So this is what we have covered so far. Augmentation is better than automation at transcending human boundaries. And second, automation is justifiable only if it frees humans from 3 Ds of labor, that is, dull, dirty, and dangerous. Now let's just think about this in context of AI. What does this mean in context of AI? When we think about augmentation and when we think about automation. And again, there are hundreds of examples out there. I have just picked two here, but if you get an idea of the historical examples of how augmentation has helped and how automation has not always helped, you can relate it with all the applications of AIs and think about what it does right now and what it can do for humanity. So, large language model. Think a little bit about whether this is an automation or an augmentation. And if you really think about it, it's actually automation. So, what these machines are doing is actually they are learning a language, something which is so human, something which humans do so naturally. They learn languages so naturally. We are making machines learn that, machines do that. So, it's actually a kind of automation. And that is also why it is very difficult for machines to learn languages. And we have seen these large language models, and they're called large language models because they are fed so much of data and they run on so many GPUs and they require so much of infrastructure to operate. So it's actually that difficult for machine to learn language. So it's an example of automation. And when we think about LLMs as an example of automation, as something that is already doing something which is humans are able to do, then we should also be thinking about what problems actually an LLM is solving. And LLM is just one example, right? Any other kind of generative AI could be looked at as a similar kind of example. And then this, where AI is helping in drug discovery, which is truly an example of augmentation. So, something that is the humans won't be able to do in a finite amount of time, the AIs are able to do, and that's how it is augmenting us. So, if we talk about in context of AI about automation and augmentation, we have to always look for such kind of applications and look at them from these lenses, that whether it is augmentation, whether it is automation, whether it is ambitious enough for humanity, or whether it is replacing dull, dirty, and dangerous jobs, and evaluate these applications based on that. So let's move on to part two of it. So we thought about how technology, any kind of technology, can transcend boundaries, and what kind of technology can do that actually, and what kind of technology is limiting of sorts in doing that. Let's talk about how technology can also potentially automate inequality. This is one fact. Uh, Women are 73% more likely to get injured in a car accident. Just think a little bit about this fact and think about why this could be the case. And this fact is true despite who is driving, who is sitting where in the car. This fact remains. The reason for this fact is actually cars are not designed for women. So when cars are manufactured, they do these crash tests of cars, and they put dummies to check the impact of these crashes, and they put only male dummies. We have been doing these crash tests for 80 years now. Our engineers, our car manufacturers didn't think that they should be also using female dummies to check the impact on female bodies. Forget about children. We are not even talking about children yet. This is how the biases, this is how what is pre existing in the society gets into technology. And there are many examples of this. We are going to discuss just a few. Remember this device, the film cameras that were very popular until I think late 90s, after which the digital cameras took over. So these cameras had this film, and this film actually was used to take a picture. So when you take a picture, the light coming from the lens is actually getting imprinted on that film, and then it is processed to create a photograph. These films used in these cameras needed to be calibrated for specific colors, for those colors to look good in those photographs. Until 1990, these films were not calibrated for black people. So, what used to happen is the photos of black people taken from such cameras were not a good quality pictures that could be used as opposed to the white people. And during the civil rights movement that happened, people protested about this. They said that, your technology, we do not have that representation in your technology also doesn't work for us. And if you remember, very recently during Black Lives Matter movement, people were talking about representation behind the camera, representation in front of the camera, but in this case there was no representation inside the camera as well. So they protested about it, but these companies did not fix it based on those protests. They eventually fixed it around 1990, when chocolate manufacturers and furniture manufacturers complained that their product photos are not good. And this is how, again, societal biases, this is how who has that bargaining power comes into place for any kind of technology. And we talked about cars, we talked about these film cameras, and these are old examples comparatively to the current technologies that we use. But we can also see how this translates into these new technologies, and do we still see the same trend? It actually gets worse with AI. So here are some examples. If you go to Google Photos, and I can do that right away as well. uh, yeah. So right now I'm on Google Photos, and all you can see here is my photographs on my account. And this app is usually on our phone as well, where our photos can be synced and we can use it to search for photos as well. So you can see all these photos in my phone on this Google Photos. And this Google Photos has an AI that can search these photos through its content. So it's the AI is actually recognizing what is in the image, and if I type in a search query, it is able to search it through that. So let me just type something here. So let me say car. I want to see my car photos, and you can see these four photos appear here. This is a very close up photo of a car. This is like where it is at in the roadside. This is a toy car actually, and this is the one in the parking, but it is like not enough light there, but it is still recognizing that well. So let's try something different. Let's say uh, animals. Okay, you can see all these animal photographs over here. So all the different photos of different animals that I have taken, there are even some toy animals there which it is recognizing. It is not just recognizing the objects, it also understand concepts. So for example, if I say birthday, then it will probably, yeah, it shows me the photos where balloons are there, etc., where some kind of decoration is there. So you can understand how good this AI is in terms of recognizing the content in the photos. Now let's try one example in the animal. For example, say dog. So if I put in dog, it is showing me all the photos of a dog. Now let me put in, there were photos of some gorillas there. So if I put in gorilla, it says no results found. And this is something weird, because if the AI is so good at is detecting that car in such a low light condition as well, why is it not showing gorilla? So if I put animal again, I see those gorilla images there. And if I just put, say, banana, because that gorilla is eating a banana, to see whether there is a problem with those images, then no, those images show up. So there is something wrong with gorillas which is not allowing it to appear in the search results. So what's actually wrong is, when this app was released first time in 2015, it was detecting black people as gorillas. And this was obviously because of the lack of data, lack of representation in the training data. After that, somebody found that out, and there is a famous like post on Twitter as well, where they posted it that, it is detecting black people as gorillas. The first thing Google did is it blocked that query altogether. So if you put in gorilla, it will not say gorilla to a gorilla as well, because these algorithms are so once they learn something, it's so difficult for them to unlearn that. However retraining that you do, there might still be a case that it might call, because of that bias that went into the initial training, black people as gorillas. So this is one famous example of how even any powerful company or powerful algorithms that Google would have, which we see in other search results that we see here, it's difficult even for those companies to kind of control these biases. And that's why it is important to see how these biases come into these technologies, and how we should be making sure that they don't come as often, or like as we are developing them further, what measures do we take to not let that happen. There is again one statistics around how banking AI algorithms are 80% more likely to reject loans to people from minority communities. This is again because of the bias that has gone into the training data. This is one famous example of a hiring AI developed by Amazon. Now, this is a good example of automation for a dull job, right? So Amazon would be getting many thousands of applications for any job posting, and it's very dull job for a person to manually scrutinize it, and it's very hectic. So they created an AI model. They tried that AI model, and what they found is it ended up rejecting female candidates. So again, an example of automation which is for a dull job, but still it has some kind of biases, and that's why we shouldn't be probably using technology or automating that particular uh, uh, task through such kind of automation. And there are many other ways that AI automates inequality as well, or has a potential to do so. Misinformation, the copyright infringements, cognitive and psychological impacts on people who are using these AI tools, the crimes, the surveillance, and the environmental impact. These are all different ways of how a technology like AI also has a potential to automate inequality. Which brings us to our third part. So we talked about how technologies can transcend boundaries. We talked about how they can automate inequalities as well, and what, which is why actually we need to focus on bringing AI and humanities together. So let's talk about, we are here at EdTech Society and we are discussing it, and there is a high chance that most of the people watching this are going to be educators or people in tech who are creating solutions for education. So what can educators do to bring AI and humanities together? The first thing that educators can do is demanding for an appropriate use of AI in education. And when I say appropriate use of AI, by looking at any kind of technology and including AI with a lens that we have been talking about so far. So, for example, the lens of augmentation versus automation. So, are we like augmenting the abilities of the teachers or anybody, any stakeholder uh, in the educational ecosystem, or are we trying to automate them? And if we are trying to automate them, why are we trying to automate them? The second being about potential biases in data that we talked in the second part, right, where there are AI based education applications, but can we have a lens to look at these potential biases in the data used for training? For example, if an AI application says that, it can help my children learn if my children just use that application, and it will navigate them, help them with personalized input, etc., etc., the question that I should be holding is, which data is this AI application trained on? And if it does not have that diverse data set, it is going to be biased about my children. So I have to think very carefully about what potential biases could there be, and could that harm my students learnings, and then is it a good option to actually do that? And we talked about augmentation versus automation, and this looks like an automating automation of a teacher, right, where teacher teacher's instruction or teacher's input to a student is being automated. And we really need to think about, is that a right thing to do? Because education is a social science, and it's something that happens through personal connections, through people sitting together sharing experiences. A technology in isolation teaching a child is a kind of automation which does not fall into that dull, dirty, dangerous bracket. Is that something a right thing to do? So we have to evaluate technology based on that as educators. And third is the persuasiveness of these technologies. These AI technology especially is very persuasive in nature. It has a lot of cognitive and psychological impacts on the user, and especially when children are using it, we have to make sure that whether or not they should be using it based on what it can lead to. So these are some examples, and I just want you to think about whether these uh, technologies, how they stand on these lenses. So teaching robots, the robots that are standing in the classroom and teaching it, do we think of it as something that can transcend our potential, or it is something, a form of an automation which will not lead to much better results, because actually something that a human can do in much better way, we are trying to replicate that. Fully automated essay scoring systems, just think about this one example and think about the potential biases that this system could have, which, and with those biases they are assessing these essays from the children. And also the impact on human creativity, where children are, essays are for expressing things, and can we really assess those using automated systems which are not flexible enough, which are trained on limited set of examples. AI answering student questions, student asking a question to AI, and the AI answering it. Do we really think of this technology as helping education, or not helping, or rather harming education? AI that helps students translate. This is something which seems like an augmentation, and it could be a good, it could be put to good use. I have seen personally some schools doing this, especially when there is a lot of diversity in the classroom, where children are uh, given some kind of tools where the some instructions can be translated for them in their home language. So this looks like a good use case of augmentation, which can really help education more. And AI that provides real-time help to teachers. A teacher is standing in the classroom. They need, based on what topic they are teaching, based on how the responses of the children are. If there is something that provides them real-time help, uh, is that something that would stand true on the automation versus augmentation? Plus, does it have other unintended consequences that we do not want? So these are some questions for you to think upon, and there is obviously going to be an MCQ test after this masterclass, which you can solve, where you will see some of these things coming up. But let's move forward for now, and we have seen what educators can do in terms of demanding for beneficial AI for education. Now let's look at what educators can do in changing the way we teach technology. And in the past, technology has been kind of taught in isolation, where it has been looked at, building skills in children. But do we really need to continue that way, or do we really need to change the way we teach technology because of the history of these technologies that we just saw, how it impacts society, and what potential AI holds in that? So, what I believe is true AI literacy isn't about learning the tools. It's not about using ChatGPT. It's not about using any particular tool by giving it good prompts, etc., etc. That's just the skill that we are thinking about, just the skill part that we are talking about. It's not true AI literacy, according to me. It is about understanding AI's foundations. It is about how understanding how AI works. And if children truly understand how AI works, then they are going to cope with many future versions of AIs, which are going to be much more complex, much more different than the current AIs that we see around. And what I mean by understanding AI's foundations, I have a small clip here which has English subtitles, which you can see, where children at the labs are learning about AI's foundations, how it works at its core.
आपण म्हणजे एआय ला असं काहीही सांगितलं तरी तो काढू शकतो का चित्र? नाही, पण तो काही इमेजेस नाही काढू शकत. फॉर एक्झाम्पल? फॉर एक्झाम्पल, a fan with one blade or a car with three wheels. ओके, पण का नाही काढू शकत तो हे? कारण की इमेज मध्ये आपण असा विचार करतो की कॅप्शन लिहिताना की असं गरज नाही की पंख्याला किती ब्लेड्स आहे सांगायला, की अ फॅन विथ 3 ब्लेड्स असं सांगायची गरज नाही पडत. आपल्याला वाटतं की एआय ला 3 ब्लेड वाला पंखा, म्हणून आपण फक्त ब्लॅक फॅन असं टाकतो. पण त्याच्यामुळं एआय ला कळत नाही की पंख्याच्या ब्लेडला नंबर्स असतात. तसंच कार सोबत आहे, आपण अ कार विथ 4 व्हील्स किंवा अ कार विथ 4 राऊंड व्हील्स असं कॅप्शन नाही देत. आपण त्या गोष्टी गृहीत धरतो, ते आपण त्याला अज्युम करतो, म्हणून एआयला कळत नाही की व्हील्स हे कारचा पार्ट आहे किंवा ब्लेड आहे हा फॅनचा पार्ट आहे, आणि व्हील्सला शेप असतं हेही एआयला कळत नाही. ओके, म्हणजे जे आपण अज्युम करतो ते एआय ला अजून अझम्पशन हा भाग नाहीये तसं, बरोबर? हो. ओके ओके, अजून अशी कुठली एक्झाम्पल तुम्हाला सुचतायत? ट्रायंग्युलर स्पेक्टकल्स. ओके. आपण एआय ला फक्त शिकवताना इमेजेस देतो, तर त्यात फक्त स्पेक्टकल्स टाकतो. त्याला एआय ला हे नाही माहित की स्पेक्टकल्सलाही शेप असतो. बरोबर बरोबर. तो ट्रायंग्युलर स्पेक्टकल्स हे मला नाही वाटत तो काढू शकणार. ओके ओके. ओके, आपण हे ट्राय करून बघूया आता नंतर. ओके, ग्रेट.
So if you look at it, this is what I mean by understanding foundation. So the children understand how AI works at its core, and they are also able to anticipate what it would not be able to do. And when you understand it at its core, it is then that you can evaluate it better. And it is this kind of understanding that is a component of AI literacy, according to me. It is also about evaluating AI, and we talked about understanding its core and how it will help them to evaluate, but it's actually about evaluating it. And here is one small example of the projects, one of the projects that children at the labs do, which is about measuring biases in AI. And they try it with multiple kinds of biases, and they actually statistically measure. And not only they not only do they compare to AI models, but they also see how two versions of the same AI model are carrying that bias, or probably sometimes also increasing that bias. And these are some of their findings. So let's watch a quick clip about a student explaining a little bit about their research.
अजून काय काय चुकतं एआयचं? एआय ला बायस असतो. आम्ही 2 व्हर्जन एआय चे टेस्ट केले, 2.0 आणि 3.0. त्याच्यामध्ये आम्ही असं टाकलं नर्स, तर मग नर्स दोन्हीमध्ये फक्त फिमेलच येत होते, मेल नव्हते. त्याला असा बायस आहे की फक्त फिमेलच नर्स असतात, पण पुरुष नर्स असू शकतात ऍक्च्युली. ओके. आणि तसंच असतं ह्याच्यासोबत, फायरमॅन सोबत. फायरमॅन बी त्यांना वाटतं फक्त मेलच असतात, आणि थिन मेल्स जास्त. पोट सुटलेले आहेत नाही. अच्छा, का पण असं का होतं? त्याला ट्रेन करताना तशी इमेजेस दिल्या असेल. ओके, अजून अजून काय काय? आणि एआय फॅट ओल्ड वुमन नाही काढू शकत कधीही. का? फॅट ओल्ड ब्लॅक. एआयला वाटतं की तसले वुमेन्स नसतातच. भयानक आहे. पण मग त्याच्यासाठी काय करायला पाहिजे आपल्याला? त्याला एव्हरी प्रकारची वुमेन्सची इमेजेस द्यायला पाहिजे. अच्छा, म्हणजे हे आपलं काम आहे परत. नाही तर एआय बायस असा वाढवत राहिला तर चुकीचं जग तयार होईल. ओके, अजून? रेस बायस. ओके. तर आम्ही जेव्हा पण टाकतो फायर फायटर और काही पण, तेव्हा ते फक्त व्हाईट कलरचेच देतो. ओके. कधी ते ब्लॅक फायर फायटर नाही देत. ठीक आहे, पण याच्यावर आता तुम्ही येत्या काळात काम कराल म्हणजे?
So when they evaluate it, and they evaluate it scientifically, they also talk about how it can be fixed. And this is the important component of AI literacy, according to me. The AI literacy is also about making AI inclusive. So this is one example of how children at the labs find out what an AI is not able to do. They collect data, they fine tune that AI model for it to be able to do it. So in this case, they found that Chandrayaan is something that AI model was not able to generate at that point in time, and they felt that it is a significant object for them, for the AI to generate it, and they collected images, they trained it, and you can see the after of their training. They also tried butterfly, which is something that it can generate, but full pakru, the Marathi name for the word butterfly, that it is not able to generate. And after their training, you can see that AI model being able to do it. They also tried it with vada pav. They thought that if it is drawing burger, a good image of a burger, it should be able to draw a good image of a vada pav. And this is about making it inclusive. This is about AI being culturally sensitive and these children thinking about these things and trying to do that. It is an important component of AI literacy, according to me. It is also about advocating for beneficial AI. So it's not just about learning stuff, but it's also talking about it, sharing about it. And these children are going out in various communities, various forums, and they're talking about it. They're presenting their research. They are talking about, how AI can be used for beneficial purpose. This is one example of children creating some kind of synthetic content, some kind of fake content, and uh, just talking to their community on whether they think that content is real or fake, and educating them about how easy it is these days to create such fake content, and therefore not they should not be believing on it. Or they also presented their research on biases with on many forums across multiple areas. So I think the goal of AI literacy should be transcending human boundaries, which we talked about earlier, as well as eradicating inequalities. It should be about thinking that how AI can transcend human boundaries by augmenting our abilities, and by augmenting I mean augmenting it in a real way, and also in eradicating inequalities, which if we do not work towards, there is a risk of AI automating these inequalities. And if AI automates those inequalities, probably it is the last chance for us to fix those inequalities before AI automates them, because AI will automate it and amplify it to such a level that then that gap in the society, then that inequality in the society would become totally unfixable. So, how AI can be used to transcend human boundaries as well as eradicate inequalities is what the goal of any AI literacy should be. And that's why it has to be AI plus humanities, and bringing these things together as educators, as people in EdTech. And it has been never more urgent. We are walking the road as we build it. There are many developments constantly happening. Every week, there are new things happening, and it's all across in every aspect of our life. So we have to take these steps on this road that is being built as we are walking it, and we have to think about how to make that road better. So thank you so much. I'll leave you with this quote. Lakshmi, I'm not able to hear you.
Okay, thanks. I just muted myself. Thank you, Mandar, for a very engaging and persuasive talk. There are, yeah. So there is someone called Anna Nina George who has joined us, and she is asking us to share the video of the school children speak about AI. Maybe we can share it in the comments itself. Um, but yeah, speaking of, what do the students learn? Like in the labs, we saw such amazing insights by the children. What children learn and how typically a day in the labs for a child looks like. If you can talk about that, that will be great.
Sure. So actually, the children at the labs, so we primarily work with underserved communities where the children do not have any prior access to any kind of technology. So when they come in, they actually are not very well acquainted with these devices, and therefore they need to learn to handle these devices as well. But we do not focus on that. We basically do not focus on, like, teaching them typing and basic skills, because we believe they can build it as they go ahead. So what we actually do is, like, at a time it's like a class of 20 children divided into four groups, so five children in each group, and each group has one laptop, and there are multiple projects, problem statements that are designed which children work on. And as they work on those projects to kind of um, achieve the purpose, they have to get acquainted with all these tools, technologies. So when, for example, children did project on biases, first time they used Excel to record their observations, they created graphs. Then they first time used PowerPoint to present their research, etc. So we believe that these are the things that they learn as they go. But when they work on these projects, and when they, for example, training an AI, right, so they are finding out what the AI is not able to do, and they are collecting data, etc., etc. The role of the facilitator is just to scaffold the learning. It's basically whenever they need help, like how the facilitator can support that. And then children, while working on those projects, they learn about these ideas, these concepts. So it's mostly about, I would say, around 75% about, children working on projects, and rest about the whole class discussions, etc. And when children are working on these projects, they often fail as well, and they have to iterate, and that's how they learn. So it's usually that kind of setup where the facilitator is just scaffolding the learning, and most of the times children are immersed in the technology, working on some kind of project.
Yeah, it was so amazing. Like some of the teens also from your lab had participated in the AI teen conference of TOMO. Like it was so wonderful hearing, hearing from them. Um, um, I would just okay. There is a question by Ananina George, and she says that she's a teacher educator. Please share ideas on how to train future teachers.
um, Train future teachers. Okay. So first thing is, I think children pick up all these new technologies very fast compared to the teachers, and the teachers really have to be on their toes, on, constantly adapting to these new technologies, which oftentimes may seem very difficult or fast to them. So I think when we train future teachers, we should not be again focusing much on using a tool to achieve a certain purpose, but rather helping them understand how conceptually these things work, because AI is a technology that is so invisible, so magical, and feels so human, that we often forget about the inner workings, and that's why we sometimes over rely on it. So there has been a lot of discussion about teaching children on how to use AI, generative AI, for creating lesson plans, for example. But unless you know the inner workings, and by inner workings I don't mean that they should know to the level that an engineer knows it, but they should know it to a level where they know how it is trained on data, and how it is basically. So other day we were like, also, we constantly keep on evaluating these various tools and models, and what we found is, if I give a prompt like, I'm a 7-year old child, and I want to learn machine learning. If I give that prompt in English, the kind of response that I get, and if I type the same prompt in Marathi, the kind of response that I get, there is a huge difference in quality of the output as well. And that is sheerly because of the data, the language data that it is trained on, which is limited in nature for regional languages, and therefore the output is not going to be that great. Or when you know that it is trained on data, then you know that okay, if you want something very customized, contextualized for your needs, probably what you might get is like very a generic or generic answer which might not suit your needs. So that therefore learning the learning the tool should be always the second step. The first step should be understanding how these tools work, and that is, I think, the right approach to do, to take.
There's one more question by Spruha, who has asked, what teaching learning frameworks would you recommend to teach critical AI literacy to K-12 learners? Any from the shared examples?
Hmm. So when we started working on the labs, basically there was no framework or curriculum available that we could refer to. So we created our curriculum from scratch, and we wanted it to be a rigorous curriculum. So it's actually eventually it will be a 2 year long intervention. Currently, we have around 125 hours of curriculum that is tested on the ground. Uh, so this curriculum and is designed in a way, and we are also kind of creating a structure and a kind of framework again that we would like to publish very soon. But I think it should be I can't right now respond to any particular framework out there that should be used. But what I would say is humanities should be an important component of it. And the reason I keep calling it humanities and not just AI ethics is also because um, AI ethics is just scratching the surface. It's just tip of the iceberg. And actually, what children need to understand is the social realities, societal realities. For example, when children are measuring biases in AI, before they do that in the labs, we make them aware of their own biases. So we have activities where children become aware of their own biases. They understand where those biases come from, and then they also realize that whatever they create in the future, they should not let these biases come in. So now this is just one example of how understanding social realities. Or for example, if in their research it is showing that AI is generating images of just male doctors and not female doctors, it's not because somebody purposely did that, but it's because of certain societal realities, certain ways our society functions, which even if girls become doctors, there are still different ways of how the data about them is not published as much as the data about male doctors do, etc., etc. So understanding about these societal phenomenons, because I don't think AI literacy is about technology only. It's a social problem, and we should think about these ideas. We should think about how technology interacts with society. So I don't have any specific curriculum or framework to recommend. Of course, I'm happy to interact with whoever needs to discuss more or design, etc., etc., and happy to share our learnings from the labs as well. And very soon we are looking forward to publish how we do it as well, for the benefit of all the education community. But yeah, that should be the core, I think, idea. And it should be like in not just accepting something as is, like just because there is new technology, it's not necessary that I should be using it in my context. I should be constantly thinking and evaluating and questioning it. So how do we develop that mindset? The curriculum should be based around that. So yeah, again, I think there is one more question. So I'm happy
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
I don't know how we can facilitate this, Lakshmi, but I'm happy to. If people reach out later as well on email,
sure,
etc.
sure.
Happy to help them
Yeah,
out
yeah.
with whatever resources we have.
Yeah, so since you are talking about publishing, I just want to plug in the EdTech Society's T4E Technology for Education conference that's happening in December.
Hmm.
I've just put in the link here. Keep looking at all our social media handles. And currently, the deadline has been extended. Watch out for that. Mandar, I have a question. I think we still have time, 5 minutes more. Um, there has been a lot of call from researchers and educators on completely shunning generative AI. So recently, there has been an open call saying that, open letter for educators who refuse the call to adopt generative AI in education. What would you say to them? Like, what are your thoughts? So I'm just going to read up. I'm not going to put up their thing. They're saying that we're a global community of education professionals who refuse the call for generative AI adoption in schools and colleges and reject the narrative of its inevitability. What would you say to them?
So I think, again, like when we say, and there are a lot of different consequences. It's like a, technology, any kind of technology rather, and generative AI to be specific. It's about how you use it. And I think, in context of teachers as well, as we spoke earlier, what to use it for, what not to use it for. We talked about grading essays, we talked about children just interacting with it, etc., etc. I am of an opinion, in fact, that it's good to take things slow. We need not to just rush towards using something because it is there. It's good to take things slow, see what are the potential problems that can happen, regulate those, and then move forward. Because that is one thing about these any kind of tech. Basically, because of the lack of regulations, and because tech moves so fast, and it gets released to lakhs of millions of people in an instant click. There is often no proper way of testing mechanism. There is not enough resources spent. So in context of education, I would rather say it's good if we take things slow, because it needs to be tested rigorously, evaluated very well before we actually think about integrating that. So even when in the labs we are teaching AI to children, we are not exposing them to any public tool. So we have created our custom interface only through which children access these AI tools, and they do not have awareness about all these public AI tools. And Lakshmi, you have interacted with a couple of children, and you know that they don't know much about these public tools either. If you ask them like ChatGPT, etc., there is a probability that some of them would still don't know, but they have learned AI because they have learned it through a custom built interface that is controlled for learning. And in the backend, of course, it is accessing all these APIs and all these different AI models, but the tool makes sure that it is specifically designed for learning, and there are safeguards in place.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, you talk about them, they don't know, but I've interacted with a couple of the students there and they have such wonderful insights. And I remember one insight specifically, and it is about like anthropomorphizing AI. And the child specifically mentioned that AI generally does not disagree with you. So it is sometimes bad for you to kind of, I don't remember the child's name, but the child did
Yeah,
mention that.
Manas.
But such interesting insights from the children. Yeah, I do not think there are any more questions as such yet. And many people are thanking you for your insights. And yeah, so that's it. I think from my end, I would love to chat with you. In fact, a lot more. I could just go on. But considering the time and what we are at, thank you so much, Mandar, for agreeing to be a part of this masterclass and delivering your masterclass. We really appreciate it for your time and efforts. And just last question, since we are at it 1 minute. So, can you talk about how AI is being used in the movie industry, since you also are part of it and you create movies and you, yeah. So,
It's
can you just talk a little bit
very
about that?
it's very controversial, and also like a lot of people who are very not happy with the way it is being used or could be used in near future as well. A lot of copyright related issues as well, but I think the core problem is about uh, art, and it's about what is art, and do we call an AI generated art? And film is I would say the most expensive art, and there are so many different kind of people. There are, different kind of artists, craftsmen, uh, you know technical people, all working together. I don't know how many, more than 30 professions working together to make one film happen. And now suddenly, with one prompt, or with a few prompts, you are able to generate these kind of. And it's again an example of automation that, I would say, unnecessary. I don't think we had this problem couple of years back. Lakshmi, we were not discussing about, Lakshmi, itna acha hota, there would have been an AI, which, if I give, not AI, some kind of technology, if I just type in something, it will create a video. We did not have this problem. So these are like, somebody created a solution. So it's actually, the rule of economy, where the demand drives the supply. It's actually reverse in this case, because there is a supply. Now people have started using it, but it's actually not solving any problem. So I feel that, artists are not happy, not the ones that I work with. I personally am also of an opinion that, it's not good for art, as well as it's not good for the cinema, and like even society. So yeah, it's a opinion though.
Yeah, thanks. But then the big question is, if it's not good for art, is it good for education? You can go on and on about it, but thank you so much, Mandar, for your time and your thoughts and coming here. And thank you for the work that you do as well at the labs. It's very interesting. Yeah. See you all in another edition of the EdTech Society's Masterclass soon. Um, Thank you for everyone who interacted with us. I would want to thank Dr. Bridju and Dr. Madhuri, who are part of the Ethics Society. They are handling the back end and the whole scheduling, and everyone at the Ethics Society who has helped us to make this happen. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon in another edition. Bye.
Thank you everyone.